Years ago, I was exposed to information intentionally crafted to shake members of my faith. Well, it worked.
People ask me all the time, how do people possibly stay in this obviously made-up religion?
I was shaken as I grappled with truths, half-truths, and blatant lies.
To this woman, your faith should have never been shaken in the first place. Meaning, you're probably talking about the CS letter. It's compiled of all the church history facts that call into question Joseph Smith's credibility as a prophet and everything that's just basically been systemically hidden from the church and caused even several people to be excommunicated from the church, all in an effort to have one single narrative about who Joseph Smith is. And even Boyd K. Packer, apostle for the church, teaching people who are going to go out and teach the stuff of the church. He says, when you're coming across stuff, just remember some things that are true are not always useful.
I decided to seek every accurately resourced document out there. I started with the Joseph Smith papers and pressed play on audio that was over 20 hours long.
Great. So I've got, let's see, Rough Stone Rolling, speaking about Nauvoo, Joseph Smith Making Up a Prophet, interviewing a Mormon Stories podcast with experts, ex-Mormon confronting, all the devastation and trauma from the church. So I feel like I've probably got my 10,000 hours of research, but 20, that is a good start.
I didn't get very far. The introduction ended with a testimony of who the prophet Joseph Smith was.
So starting with accurately sourced documents that started with an emotionally informed church leader's opinion. Okay.
As I listened, I was overcome with light I have only experienced a few times in my life. I knew without a doubt what all the historical information in the world could never tell me.
The people who systemically hid all the information from you, whose job it is to make you believe Joseph Smith is a prophet, told you Joseph Smith was a prophet of God?
Joseph Smith was a prophet, called by God to restore parts of Christ's gospel to the earth that had been lost.
Okay, getting serious here. There is no trying to construct a document to shake your faith filled with lies and half-truths called the CS letter. There is instead a protective cognitive function constructed to not shake you from your norm. The norm of believing Joseph Smith was a good man who restored the gospel of Jesus Christ, which gives you the direction and light that you can continue on as normal because that's all you know how to do when confronted with traumatizing facts. It's called the normalcy bias. You admitted you wanted to read everything you could, but stopped after someone bore their testimony of what it is normal for you to believe. That is, to me, it's a strong indication. You have this cognitive bias around your religion, which leads people everywhere to disbelieve and minimize threat warnings and go on with what comes naturally. All the more obvious and transparent when you can't say the honest truth. There's mostly true things in the CS letter. CS letter told you how Joseph Smith made it up, and it was traumatizing. I have been there. The church's top faithful LDS apologist, Patrick Mason, recently he admitted that Joseph Smith's polygamy looked a lot like sin. They admit that the Book of Abraham is indistinguishable from a fraud. And what do you do when you have a faithful Mormon historian, stake president, patriarch, Richard Bushman, that admits that the Mormon church has misled its members for decades about church history? Your protected brain represses, and it goes back into this normal thing where it has to say, it's the antis trying to shake your faith with a document constructed to do that. Engaging with the facts is painful, and it feels just as life-threatening as if somebody's coming at you with a butcher knife.
He wasn't perfect or infallible, but he humbly and willingly made every sacrifice possible, going through the most horrendous of trials and persecution, doing what most any man would shrink away from, just so you and I could have precious truth.
Just so you could have precious truth. Every sacrifice possible. You're putting some mighty Christy language on a guy who had his devoted followers give them their wives and children to have sex with them, crowned himself king of the world, almost had his twig and berries castrated for coming onto the wrong guy's daughter, then amassed so much wealth from his failed bank, political aspirations, First Amendment control, that he burned down a printing press about to expose his sexual predations.
I do not care what the world has to say about him, evil or good. My testimony is not made up of knowledge that you can find in the footnotes of a book or any opinion online.
Minimize the threat.
It is from a source that trumps all information, fact or fiction, and I will never deny what has been testified to my soul. Satan's greatest effort is to keep this light from the world, so it's no wonder he has helped so many to doubt and mock it. You can learn from the Spirit too, and who knows, maybe you just did. If you felt something, don't forget it.
I testify that no amount of faith can shake logic and facts if you want to know facts, if that's important to you. And I think you know that too when we're talking about a different religion. And you would know that no amount of faith in Warren Jeffs as a prophet can excuse his abuse. So like if a member of the LDS Church, got the same Warren feelings, reading out of the Book of Mormon, but said that they knew Warren Jeffs is a prophet, and he holds the same mantle of authority that you believe Joseph Smith held to be God's only mouthpiece on earth. And if that Mormon woman said, he's made mistakes, but it's been testified to my soul that I know he's a prophet, you would know that there is a lot baked into that word mistakes. That there are mistakes like having an argument with your wife where the spirit retreats, and then then there's also like saying outright lies, like saying that God told you to marry children. So here's the issue, Mormons, for people who don't finish their reading of audiobooks. For Joseph to set that precedent so that all the other leaders who follow me today and in the future will also marry children, that's one of Joseph's many legacies. The weight, if you could quantify it, since you've read the church history, never mind, maybe you haven't. If you read In Sacred Loneliness and you hold the weight, the pain that has been inflicted on these thousands of Mormon women and all the branches that have broken off since Joseph Smith, all who have cried and wept and all been in this conflict with their faith that Joseph was a prophet and he also instituted this higher law they have to enter into. All of the trauma response, all of their mind and body. Could you even wrap your brain around and quantify the innocence lost because of Joseph's mistakes, as you'd probably call them? I'm on here making this video because I just will not let one more testimony go on that Joseph made mistakes and that feelings trump all facts. Women, men, children who have all probably have oceans and oceans of trauma from Joseph's mistakes. Their feelings on the facts of Joseph's abuse of power, they could flood the world. You have to ask yourself, Mormons, a real serious question. If your best intentions that you put on your God, your heavenly Father, who you think he is, what he wants, what is his righteousness, who do you worship, really is that keeping your candle lit? That price Joseph Smith instituting polygamy the way that he did it, the way that all the following prophets did it, is that worth it? If Joseph restoring the church with all of its ups and downs, and if you actually study it and you know how down those lows go into intergenerational, unfathomable trauma, is it just irrelevant to the light that you glean off of it? We all live in systems where we benefit from exploitation and we are exploited. The difference with the Mormon church is the callousness. The callousness of its leaders, social media influencers, all the way down to its members, who think that this is virtuous, this whole thing. Light. What is light? I have so much light, I have joy, I have peace, because I feel like I'm in an autonomous place as a woman in this world where if my husband abused me, I could leave him without anyone threatening mine or my children's eternal salvation. I have so much light and joy and peace, knowing I don't have to follow any leader for spiritual guidance who would tell me otherwise. Otherwise, what is the point of light? What is this light? If it's not bright enough to burn through that cognitive bias to tell you that, yeah, there might be a creator, there might be a source of truth and light, but it's not found in any mouthpiece that would inflict that much sexual trauma onto its loyal followers. Light is having autonomy. Light is knowing that God doesn't tell his mouthpiece on earth to have sex with his followers' wives and children. And don't forget it.